show very clearly that the committee been thinking differently, and they've been giving to the Egyptian people a very high standard of amendments. By the end of the day, Mustashar al-Bishri is a very known Egyptian thinker on an Islamic background. And that was the part of the questions and part of the criticism, that 2 or 3 of the members of this committee is very officially or very known. They have an Islamic, political Islamic background. But in the end of the day, the amendments seems very, very liberal, and I think reach the goal and the needed goal of having a permanent constitution, create a better environment for political change in Egypt.
What are the 8 articles that were basically under investigation, and are these adequate to change the constitution?
The most important article is the final article, which is saying that this specific constitution are not going to be changed very soon. There is 2 main articles politically can change the situation in Egypt. The first article is who's going to do the next elections. In my point of view, this is the most important part. We will have a judge committee, which is very trustable by the Egyptian people, is going to take the control of any election process in the next future in Egypt, starting from preparing the voter list, going to accept or refuse candidates, and third is going to make a very clear final list for Egyptian people, very clear procedures of voting, and keeping and monitoring the voting process, and in the end declare the results. The second most important amendment, which is the amendment about the presidential period, and it's finally in Egypt we will have, seems that we will have an ex-president title, like in any other democratic state. None of the Egyptian next presidents are going to stay more than 8 years, however is going on in Egypt. And this is one of the achievement, the great achievement happening in Egypt right now, and being done by the Egyptian revolution and by the Egyptian young people who pay their own blood to achieve this kind of change.
Right. Among the articles that were amended, the 8 articles that Radwa mentioned, are some articles that would let us, of course, not forget the article that limits the presidential term.
Yes.
This we are going to talk about, but we need to know the articles that would give or limit the access of the president's choice of the people elected in the parliament, and who is going to make that kind of choice, and on what basis this choice should be monitored by some judiciary committee or something. We need to know that. How do you read that?
Actually, it's the 8 amendments make the next future of Egypt very clear. We will have a president with 8 years maximum, or 4 years maybe, because we will have a presidential election. Some president will win, some president could lose. First. Second, we will have a committee and a foundation committee creating a new constitution, and this foundation committee giving the chance to the Egyptian people to giving the chance to Egyptian elite to choose what kind of new constitution we'll have in Egypt and what kind of new political future we'll have in Egypt. The third important thing is that the Egyptian constitution is limited in a very open way, but in the same time in a very limited way, who can run to the presidential seat. Any Egyptian personnel who's a member in a political party, and this political party have at least one representative in the People Assembly or in the Shura Council. Any Egyptian person who can collect 30,000 signatures from a different 15 governorates can be a candidate, or any Egyptian person who have the right, who can reach 30 different members in the Shura Council or the Egyptian Parliament.
Can have their votes, I mean, their voices?
No, just a signature. He need to...
So we are talking about the presidential elections?
Yes, we are talking about the presidential. Any Egyptian with a mother and father Egyptian, never carry another passport, never carried before another identity or another nationality, can run for this election. And limited age is not younger than 40 years old, and the maximum age is open.
But I think, excuse me, I mean, I need to interfere here. I mean, there is some other points who are supposed to prioritize these points to be prioritized according to us as a people of Egypt. There should be some other qualifications, like, for example, his program. I mean, this is the thing that
but the constitutionally
define if this is a good president or no.
Yeah, of course. But this is a very.
I mean, did they have that in concern?
No, because in the end of the day, when you create a constitution, you need to create just the rules, not not a specific.
And then the details would come.
Yeah, the details usually come later on. But specifically about the political agenda of any political candidate in any political elections, this is something being discussed inside the voting box.
But they are distracting the attention of people to minorities, to minor things that are not really actually the most important things. The most important thing that we should elect someone for his programs, for what he's going to do for the country, for his causes, for his beliefs.
Whatever, but
regardless of his color, his race, that's how I think. I mean,
yeah,
we don't have that in Egypt. We don't have the color race
it's
issue.
time that we should have that. I mean, not the color in particular, but I mean, it's the content that we should be looking for. I'm not talking in particular about the color, but
yeah, I understand.
The program, the ideas.
You cannot,
the ideologies.
You cannot, when you create a new constitution, when you create a new system and you try to found a new regime and a new
you also build
era.
New ideologies with it. When you create a new constitution, you create new ideologies for the people with it.
You cannot create ideology through a democratic constitution. I'm sorry. You can just limit the rules and put the rules and constructions to any Egyptian, whatever his political background is, and give an open space for different candidates to give to the Egyptian people their own point of view, to give to the Egyptian people what they think, what their agenda, what their background, what kind of future they are dreaming with, what kind of achievement they can do to the Egyptian people, and then we can choose, of course.
Well, let me get back to the point of the term, 4 years.
Yeah.
We know that this is applied in the United States, but is that enough time when we're talking, of course, this is like a period of time that is known worldwide, the 4-year term. But regarding Egypt, is this term enough? Or could it have been, for example, 5 years?
يعني
or 6?
After 30 years,
Because
I guess
it's
it would be
a change.
enough.
No, especially that we are in a transitional period now.
Let us be very frankly here. We had 30 years under one president, and that was not pleasant at all. All these constitutional amendments being the main goal and the main request by all the Egyptian people in the previous under the ex-president Mubarak. But what we can see here that we don't want to have. It seems that the people who wrote these different articles don't want to have a new pharaoh in Egypt. We just wanted to have a president who's working hand in hand with his cabinet, hand in hand with his parliament.
I'm talking about the small term,
yes,
not to keep it open altogether, but the 4 years.
But this is, I think, this is the background idea. That you don't, you're not waiting for a new president with a magic stick can change the world.
Because in the United States, they are suffering from this 4-term thing. The president takes a year to adjust, and the president takes a year for the next elections. So there are only 2 years to work. We've seen that with Obama, especially with the economic problem. We've seen him suffering because the term is really short and the expectations are too high. So over here, we are in a transitional period.
The greatest thing about this, and the greatest thing about what you're saying, that you wanted to be like United States, which is a very good democratic model. But still, it's very, very important that we give the chance to the Egyptian people to choose if this specific political figure is needed, or they want to continue whatever political agenda he is doing or not, or he's following or not. And this is mean that we are every 4 years the Egyptian people is going to vote with or against, because this is when you have a president with 4 years, this is give the chance to the Egyptian people to have a good say if they like what he's been doing in the previous 4 years or not. So it's and if he's a successful person, he can get another 4 years. And this is give the upper hand to the Egyptian people, not to the president, which is a very needed thing in our future, which is a very critical thing we've been suffering before.
Going back to the process of electing, because we, as Egyptians, we seem to have, we seem to have a little bit of a problem with the election process,
yes,
given the fact what happened in the former parliament elections, and there was a lot of shame about it. It was full of fraud. According to the new amendments, an independent committee made up of 4 judges will supervise the elections from day one. The list of candidates is announced to the final results.
Yes.
Now, this is an independent committee. It's not going to be following any sector or anything.
This is an independent judges committee, which is mean it's away from the Ministry of Interiors.
The Ministry of Interior?
Yes. Before
not the Ministry of Justice.
Yeah, this is under the ministry. This is mean that the constitution, the election are going to be under a committee of judges, which is give a more independence to this committee, and it's very obvious that this committee are going to be leading the whole election process. And for us as Egyptian, in our back minds, we've been fearing election because it's attached to fraud, it's attached to violence, it's attached to money.
Right. However, it happens everywhere in the world, not only
everywhere
in
the world.
In the States, it happens. If you have money and access to money, then you can have.
That's a long-term thing to do. It's not everywhere in the world.
There is somewhere in the world, not only Egypt.
In bad world. In bad parts of the world, but not everywhere in the world. But we need to have an independence committee. That was a long discussion in the Egyptian society. You need an independence referee who can be very independent, have no specific relation to any kind of executive authority. Because if you really wanted to have a powerful parliament, this powerful parliament have to keep monitoring the executive authority all the time. So we in the old regime, on the old system, under Mubarak, under the NDP, this authority, this creation or this supervision of the election was under the Ministry of Interiors. And that was a very big mistake. And that was making the election manipulated all the time by security forces and related to a specific political agenda. But what we will have in the future, that we have a referee, and this is the best way to tell it to the Egyptian people.
Couldn't be better than that.
Yes.